Okay, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open the secrets of literally one of the most legendary, supposedly impenetrable facilities on the face of the planet, Fort Knox. But we're not just going to geek out over thick walls and heavy doors here. We're actually going to explore what this ultimate physical fortress can teach every single one of us about defending our modern digital enterprises.
It really is a fascinating question, right? How exactly does the world's most famous vault secure its treasure? And maybe more importantly for us, what can a concrete bunker built way back in the 1930s possibly teach us about protecting our own digital gold today? Well, the connection between physical vault engineering and modern cybersecurity is honestly absolutely mind-blowing. By the time we wrap up this explainer, I promise you're going to see your own IT network defenses in a totally different light.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the ultimate physical fortress. So let's dive right into this. The Fort Knox Bullion Depository. It is way more than just a big safe. Built with 16,000 cubic feet of granite, thousands of yards of poured concrete, and hundreds of tons of steel, it's a complete integrated security architecture. The absolute core philosophy here is something called defense in depth. Top-tier security, whether physical or digital, isn't actually about building some unbreakable, magical wall. That's a myth. It's really all about maximizing resistance and friction. You want to buy time. You want a time advantage so your detection and response systems can kick in and shut down an attacker long before a breach is even remotely possible. Just to put this into perspective, think about this staggering number for a second. 20 tons. That is the reported weight of the Fort Knox vault door alone. 20 tons. That's roughly the weight of 3 full-grown elephants just hanging on a hinge. It's a prime example of using extreme mass to just absorb impact. But it's not just heavy for the sake of being heavy. It uses engineered overlap geometry, which means there are 0 gaps for an attacker to use as lever points. Plus, it has these incredible relocking systems. It's a fail-secure logic, meaning if someone actually tampers with a primary lock zone, secondary blocks automatically trigger to keep that massive door firmly shut. There's just no way you're getting through that easily. And the rest of the structure? It uses this genius concept called heterogeneous layering to resist what we call mixed mode attacks. Basically, think about the sheer frustration an attacker faces here. If they bring in a massive drill, boom, they hit high-strength concrete. So they swap to a thermal lance to melt through, and suddenly they hit heat-dissipating compounds. They switch to a cutting tool and they run right into steel skins and anti-deflection inserts. It literally forces intruders to constantly swap out their tools, which wastes precious time. And while they're out there fumbling around, early warning seismic and thermal sensors are quietly doing their job, alerting the guards. The whole point is that no single tool works efficiently. Moving right along to Section 2, auditing the gold. Now, a pristine, impenetrable fortress is really only as good as the treasure it protects, right? I mean, all that concrete and steel doesn't mean much if the vault is completely empty. Throughout this explainer, we're going to be talking a lot about this idea that your data is your gold bullion. It really is the perfect way to think about enterprise security. But before we can even talk about protecting our own digital data, we kind of have to prove the legendary Fort Knox gold is actually physically there to begin with. And oh, it is there. As of September 30th, 1985, the United States government officially held an absolutely massive 262.6 million fine troy ounces of gold. Back then, that was valued at the statutory rate of roughly $11.1 billion. Just an inconceivable amount of wealth. And the vast majority of this breathtaking hoard was locked away safely in Fort Knox and a few other key mint depositories. Now, we actually know this for a fact, and we have the receipts. Thanks to primary source documents like an authentic 1985 Department of the Treasury Office of the Inspector General audit report, we can actually ground this in historical fact. This proves that specialized ad hoc audit committees were actually sent in to physically and rigorously validate the wealth of the nation. They didn't just take someone's word for it. So how exactly do you audit a literal mountain of gold? Well, through incredibly strict procedural security. These committees had to follow a rigorous step-by-step process. First up, they inspected the Joint Committee seals on every single compartment just to ensure there was absolutely zero tampering. Second, they meticulously compared the inventory records directly against the identifying information stamped right onto the gold bars themselves. Third, they physically removed samples from the melts and had them assayed, basically tested for purity. And finally, they verified the mathematical accuracy of the entire stack of inventory records. It is a totally 100% airtight chain of custody. When you actually dive into the data from that report, it's pretty wild. Over a continuing 10-year program spanning from 1974 all the way to 1984, they steadily audited these massive holdings. And by 1982, 100% of the Fort Knox gold stored at the depository under that initial program had been physically audited and sealed. So yes, the gold is absolutely there, and it is meticulously accounted for. Which brings us to Section 3, the cybersecurity blueprint. Okay, so we've established the physical security, and we've officially verified the gold. Now let's pivot to the modern enterprise and see how this historical blueprint directly shapes our digital defense strategies today. There is an undeniable direct line between the architectural marvel of Fort Knox and your own IT network. On the physical side, you've got that massive 20-ton vault door and those thick, reinforced concrete walls. While in your digital environment, those exact same functions are performed by your hardware and software-based firewalls. They are your massive perimeter barriers. They're engineered to absorb the initial impact and block digital intruders from ever stepping foot inside your network.
And it goes deeper. Fort Knox operates on a very strict principle of split custody. No single person on Earth can open that vault alone. It requires multiple authorized officials, all with distributed credentials, to complete an opening sequence together. Think about your enterprise ecosystem for a second. This directly mirrors multi-factor authentication, or MFA. You're requiring multiple, completely separate pieces of evidence before granting access, which effectively eliminates a single point of compromise. One stolen password isn't going to cut it, just like one stolen key won't open Fort Knox.
So we are applying that exact same defense-in-depth philosophy, just digitally. Those early warning seismic sensors and perimeter alarms at Fort Knox, those translate perfectly to intrusion detection and prevention systems, your IDS and IPS monitoring your network around the clock. The physical hardened containers and layers of steel, that translates into end-to-end encryption, protecting your most sensitive data. And just like the Treasury uses physical safes, your enterprise needs hardware security modules, or HSMs, to protect your critical cryptographic keys, all backed by public key infrastructure, or PKI, to verify digital identity. You are forcing the attacker to constantly change their tools and waste their time.
Because ultimately, as the saying goes, authentication makes trust in an insecure digital world. It really is that simple. Just like Fort Knox requires exact verified authorization to bypass its immense door and access the audited bullion, your digital enterprise relies entirely on stringent access controls and identity management. I mean, think about it. If you don't know exactly who is trying to access your network, all the firewalls and encryption in the world aren't going to save you.
Which brings us to our final thought. As we've seen throughout this explainer, Fort Knox doesn't actually rely on being invincible. Instead, it buys time. It buys time with concrete, steel, and rigorous procedural governance. So the question you need to deeply consider for your own organization's security posture is this: how much time do your multi-layered digital defenses buy you against a cyber attack? Do you have the systems in place to detect, delay, and respond long before your own digital gold is compromised? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Evaluate your layers and stay secure out there.